So I don't know if you've heard, but The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom released recently. Of course I think it's great, but I have a problem. I have to share my Nintendo Switch with Katie. Ugh, I know, right? Sharing. In between play sessions, let's make something Zelda related. Let's make the Decayed Master Sword. While our parts are printing, remember that the files I used are down in the description below. Depending on the type of your printer is going to determine the best way to print the pieces. With my printer, I printed the handle pommel like this to give it extra strength, the guard like this for a more clean finish, and I had no choice but to print the blade like this due to its vertical length. All of the parts finished printing with the final result looking like this. My printer is not the best, but I'd say that everything is looking just fine. This should be a quick, easy build with minimal finishing. Let's get rid of some of the highest print line ridges with some sandpaper. I've finished a ton of 3D prints with a high gloss, but this one is going to be handled and played with. After a little bit of sanding, here's what the parts are looking like. I'm passing on sanding the blade down for now, but you can if you want. You'll see why I'm skipping that in a little bit. The inside of the sword is going to need a sturdy core. You can use all kinds of materials for that, like wooden dowels, metal rods. However, I'll be using this inexpensive number 10 by 24, 3-foot tall threaded rod that I found at my local department store. I measure and cut the rod with tin snips so that the whole assembly test fits snug together. Test fitting everything before the next step is extremely important. For extra credit, let your Bellatrix and your Katie swing it around a little bit to get their approval, you know. I brought everything out to the shop and mixed up some 5-minute epoxy. Very quickly, with the timer going, the inside of the parts were buttered like bread using a popsicle stick. Who wrote this? It was me. Our freshly cut threaded rod was used to push some epoxy down into the handle and swirl it around. All of the pieces were assembled at this time around the rod, leaving out the handle and the jewels. Take some clamps like this and place them around the assembly to get the tightest and most secure fit. We'll come back to that after it cures, but let's work on the Decayed blade next. This here is real metal duct tape. A roll of this will last you forever. We are going to use this to give the blade an exposed metal finish, and don't worry about the branding on the tape. It'll come off easily using a little isopropyl alcohol and a towel. Remove the paper off the back and stick the tape on the side of the blade that you're working on. Using a finger, push the tape down into the details of the sword, and you'll be surprised how much detail you can get to show through this tape. When adding tape to the edges, it's advantageous to hide the edges of the tape along the corners. But don't be too worried though, it's a Decayed blade after all. Next, grab an X-Acto knife or a similar blade and use it to cut out the decayed portions of the sword. It should be quite easy to see the outlines of where you need to cut after pushing the tape down with your fingers or a tool. After pushing the cut marks against the print with a pick and removing the rest of the red branding on the tape, this is what the blade looks like. In my opinion, looks pretty good, actually. Hey look, the handle is fully cured. Remove any epoxy that's squeezed out of the sides and grab a little painter's tape. I covered the exposed threaded rod with a little bit of that tape and stuck it on top of a wooden block to hold it upright. The gloves come on the hands and the handle is thoroughly cleaned off with some IPA to clean off all the dirt and the oil from the handling and prep work. Here is the flat white primer I'll be using. Everybody gets pretty crazy with this stuff. Nice light coats. Just like this. Let it dry in between each application. I ended up doing 3 coats of this primer, making sure that all the applications were even across the handle. After the final application of primer, here's the purple paint that we'll be using. For the purple paint, I did 2 light coats and then 2 heavy coats, following the wet edges of the sprays. Back to the blade. Grab some regular super glue and some baking soda, and because we printed this in black PLA, this will look really cool. Spread super glue over the decayed black portions of the blade, and with the glue still wet, grab a pinch of baking soda and spread it over the glue. Have fun with it! Rust and decay have no rhyme or reason on something like this. Feel free to make happy little accidents. I blew the excess loose baking soda off with an air compressor and brought the blade back in for a paint job. Some paint was mixed up to make this, greenish brown. Using a small brush, several layers of this color was applied on the blade in between the exposed metal portions and the black. After the paint had dried, for fun, I used a pick to scrape off some of the overflow, random bits here and there to create just a little imperfect perfection. You can paint the jewels, but I decided on a different method, just to see how it looks. This is real copper tape that I use for some of my electrical repairs. Shameless plug on the top right hand side of the screen if you like seeing electronics getting fixed. Using this copper tape, the jewels and the edge between the handle and the blade were wrapped in the same way that the blade was before, making sure that all the details are showing through. Here are the finished jewels, and here is the finished wrapped handle. Yes, very decorative. I dabbed a little super glue on the inside of the handle and the threaded rod. Time to slide the blade and the handle assembly together. Nice. Way to do it on screen, Zach. Just the finishing touches. I had some leather strips just wide enough to wrap the handle. Using a little of this green spray paint, I haphazardly sprayed both sides of the leather, then fully let it dry. Don't eat the green spaghetti. It's bad for you. All that's left is to wrap the handle with the leather strips that we painted. The leather was tacked into place using super glue, then decoratively wrapped in both directions of the handle. And guess what? That's it. Let's see how it turned out. Thank you so much for watching. It would mean so much to me if you like this video, hit the bell icon and subscribe to the channel. And I guess if you don't, Katie will do exactly 1 damage to you with her new pokey sword. It's hard for me to sit still for too long, so expect all sorts of fun videos in the future. I already have a good collection of fun 3D printing projects and electronic repair projects in my backlog of videos, so head on over to my channel page and check them out. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.